The sun was setting over the Martinez vineyard, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that looked almost too perfect to be real. White chairs lined up in neat rows faced a wooden arch decorated with roses and baby's breath. The ceremony had ended an hour ago, and now the real party was starting. Maya wiped down another table, her feet already aching in the standard-issue black flats all the waitstaff had to wear. She'd been on her feet since 6 that morning, helping set up for what the venue manager kept calling the wedding of the season. The bride had spared no expense. There were ice sculptures shaped like swans, a chocolate fountain taller than Maya herself, and enough champagne to fill a swimming pool. She glanced at the band setting up on the elevated stage near the dance floor. They looked professional, the kind of musicians who'd played 1,000 weddings and knew exactly which songs would get grandma and the college kids dancing at the same time. The lead guitarist was tuning his instrument, and the singer was testing the microphone with a few quick words. Maya felt that familiar tug in her chest, the one she'd been trying to ignore for 2 years now. "Table 7 needs more wine," Carlos called out from across the reception area. He was the head waiter tonight, which meant Maya had to hustle even faster than usual. She grabbed 2 bottles of red from the service station and made her way through the growing crowd of guests. The bride, Rebecca, floated past in her enormous white dress, laughing at something her new husband was whispering in her ear. They looked genuinely happy, the kind of happy that made even cynical waitstaff like Maya crack a small smile. Love was nice when it worked out like this, she thought. When people actually got their fairy tale ending. Maya's own story felt pretty far from a fairy tale these days. 24 years old, with almost $50,000 in student loans for a degree she never finished. The Riverside Conservatory of Music had been her dream, the place she'd worked her whole life to get into. She'd been accepted on a partial scholarship, enough to make it seem possible. Her parents had taken out loans to cover the rest, believing in her talent, believing she'd make it as a professional musician. That belief lasted exactly 1.5 years before reality crashed in. Her father's company downsized. Her mother's medical bills started piling up. And suddenly Maya's dream of becoming a concert violinist seemed selfish and impossible. She'd left school, taken the waitressing job, and hadn't touched her violin since the day she packed it away in her childhood bedroom closet. "Miss, could we get some more of those little crab cakes?" An older woman with elaborate jewelry smiled up at her from table 12. "Absolutely, I'll bring those right out," Maya said, forcing her customer service smile into place. The one that said she was happy to be there. Happy to serve, happy period. It was a good smile. She'd practiced it in the mirror enough times that it came automatically now. The band started playing their first song, a smooth jazz number that got a few couples swaying toward the dance floor. Maya found herself humming along as she returned to the kitchen. She couldn't help it. Music was in her bones in every breath she took. Leaving the conservatory hadn't killed that part of her, no matter how much she sometimes wished it would. Maybe it would hurt less if she could just stop caring about music altogether. "You're doing that thing again," Lisa said, bumping Maya's shoulder as they both waited for the kitchen to finish plating the next round of appetizers. Lisa was another server, a few years older with 2 kids at home and an ex-husband who never paid child support on time. "What thing?" Maya asked, though she knew exactly what Lisa meant. That humming thing, the tapping your fingers thing. "Girl, you light up like a Christmas tree whenever there's music playing." Lisa grabbed her tray of stuffed mushrooms and headed back out. "You should be up there performing, not down here serving." If only it were that simple, Maya thought. If only talent and passion were enough to pay the bills, to take care of her parents, to make responsible adult decisions. But the world didn't work that way. The world required money and insurance and rent payments that came due, whether you were following your dreams or not. She pushed through the swinging kitchen doors with her tray of crab cakes, nearly colliding with a woman in a sparkly blue dress. The woman was part of the bride's entourage, one of the bridesmaids from the ceremony. She had that confident energy of someone who'd never had to choose between dreams and survival. "Sorry," Maya said quickly, steadying her tray. "No worries." The woman's words came out slightly slurred. She'd clearly been enjoying the open bar. "Hey, you look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" "I don't think so," Maya said politely. "I just work here." No, I swear." The woman squinted at her. "Wait, didn't you go to Riverside? The music school?" Maya's stomach dropped. This was exactly the conversation she tried to avoid. I went there for a while, yeah. But that was a couple years ago. I knew it. I'm Natalie. I was in the general music program. You were in strings, right? Violin? Oh my God, you were amazing. I saw you perform at that winter showcase. You played that crazy difficult piece, the one that made everyone's jaw drop. The Paganini Caprice number 24. Maya remembered it perfectly. The practice sessions that left her fingers bleeding. The moment she walked on stage, terrified and exhilarated. The applause that followed, making her feel like maybe, just maybe, she was good enough to make it. Thanks, Maya said quietly. That was a long time ago. So what are you doing now? Are you with a symphony or something? Natalie's enthusiasm was genuine, which somehow made it worse. I'm actually just working for now. Family stuff came up. Maya shifted her tray, ready to escape. I should get these crab cakes delivered. Oh, sure. Natalie waved her hand. But hey, seriously, you were too talented to just disappear. I hope you're still playing somewhere. Maya just smiled that practice smile and moved on to table 12. The older woman with the jewelry thanked her profusely for the crab cakes, which gave Maya something to focus on besides the uncomfortable ache in her chest. The band was playing an upbeat pop song now, and the dance floor was filling up. The bride and groom were in the center, surrounded by their friends and family, everyone moving and laughing and celebrating. Maya watched as she cleared empty plates from table 4. This was the part of weddings she actually liked, the pure joy of it. For a few hours, everyone forgot about their problems and just existed in this bubble of happiness. She caught herself tapping her finger against her thigh in time with the music. 4/4 time, a simple chord progression, nothing fancy. But the band's violinist was adding little flourishes to the melody, showing off just enough to make it interesting. Maya's fingers twitched, remembering what it felt like to draw a bow across strings, to create sound from nothing but wood and horsehair and skill. Maya, can you cover the main table? Carlos appeared at her elbow. The bride's party is getting loud and we need someone diplomatic up there. Sure thing, Maya said, heading toward the table where Natalie and the other bridesmaids were gathered. The main table was always the trickiest assignment at weddings. That's where the people with opinions sat, the ones who'd been drinking since the champagne toast during the ceremony. As she approached with a pitcher of water for refills, she heard Natalie's voice rising above the others. I'm telling you, there's someone at this wedding who's got more talent than that entire band combined. Maya's steps slowed. She had a sinking feeling she knew exactly where this conversation was heading, and she really hoped she was wrong. Maya pretended to be very focused on pouring water into glasses, hoping Natalie would move on to a different topic. Any topic, but the bridesmaid was on a roll now, gesturing wildly with her champagne flute. I'm serious. This girl was a prodigy, like the kind of musician you see on those talent shows and think, how is that even possible? Natalie turned in her seat, scanning the reception area. Where did she go, Maya? Come here for a second. There was no avoiding it now. Maya set down the water pitcher and approached the table with what she hoped looked like casual professionalism. Yes, do you need something? Tell them, Natalie insisted, pulling Maya closer to the group of bridesmaids and groomsmen. Tell them about your music. You were studying violin at Riverside, right? Classical performance. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at Maya. She felt her face getting hot. I mean, yeah, I studied there for a bit. But that was a while ago. A bit? Natalie laughed. Girl, you were the star of the whole strings department. I remember the professors talked about you like you were the next big thing. What happened? Why aren't you playing anymore? Maya shifted uncomfortably. Life happened. Family stuff. You know how it is. One of the groomsmen, a guy with perfectly styled hair and an expensive watch, leaned forward. So you just gave it up? Just like that? The question hit harder than he probably meant it to. Maya felt defensive even though she knew he was just making conversation. Sometimes you have to make practical choices. Music doesn't pay the bills unless you're one of the lucky few. That's so sad, one of the other bridesmaids said, her voice dripping with wine-soaked sympathy. All that talent just wasted. It's not wasted, Maya said quietly. I just use it differently now. By serving crab cakes. The guy with the watch smirked and Maya fought the urge to dump the water pitcher over his head. Actually, yes. I'm helping pay off my parents' medical bills and keeping a roof over my head. Not everyone has the luxury of following their dreams. She knew she sounded bitter, but she couldn't help it. People like this, people who'd never had to choose between passion and survival, they just didn't get it. Natalie waved her hand dismissively at the groomsman. Don't be rude, Tyler. She turned back to Maya, her eyes bright with sudden inspiration. You know what? I have an idea. The band is taking a break in like 20 minutes. You should perform something. Just one song. Oh, I don't think that's a good idea, Maya said quickly. Her heart was already racing at the thought. I haven't played in 2 years. I don't even have an instrument with me. The band has a violin. Natalie was getting excited now, the way drunk people do when they think they've had a brilliant idea. I saw it on stage. I bet they'd let you borrow it. Come on, it'll be fun. When's the last time you even held a violin? That's exactly my point. I'm out of practice. I'd probably embarrass myself. Maya glanced around, looking for an escape route. Where was Carlos when she needed him? Or, Tyler said, his smirk growing wider, you were never as good as Natalie remembers and you're just making excuses. Tyler. Natalie smacked his arm. Don't be a jerk, but the damage was done. Maya felt anger flare in her chest, mixing with the fear and sadness that had become her constant companions. This entitled guy in his designer suit, questioning her talent, questioning everything she'd sacrificed. You know what? Fine. The words came out before she could stop them. I'll play something. But not for free. If I'm going to perform at your friend's wedding, I want $200. The table went quiet for a second. Then Natalie burst out laughing. Done, that's totally fair. I'll pay you $200 if you get up there and play one song. Just one. Wait, you're serious? Maya's voice wavered. What had she just agreed to? Dead serious. Natalie pulled out her phone. I can Venmo you right now if you want. Half now, half after you play. This is going to be amazing. Rebecca's wedding will have a special performance. Maya's mind raced. $200 would cover her electric bill and groceries for 2 weeks. But playing in front of all these people after so long with an instrument she'd never touched before, her hands were already starting to shake at the thought. I need to ask my manager first, Maya said, grasping for any delay. I can't just stop working to perform. Go ask. Natalie made shooing motions. We'll wait. Oh my God, everyone's going to love this. Maya walked away from the table on legs that felt like rubber. This was insane. She couldn't do this. She shouldn't do this. But that $200 kept flashing in her mind like a neon sign. That was real money. Money she desperately needed. She found Carlos near the kitchen, checking his clipboard. Hey, I have a weird question. Weird is normal at weddings, Carlos said without looking up. What do you need? One of the bridesmaids wants to pay me to perform with the band during their break. I know it's unusual, but she's offering $200 and I could really use the money. Maya spoke quickly, hoping he'd say no and take the decision out of her hands. Carlos looked up, his eyebrows raised. Perform? You play an instrument. I used to. I studied violin in college. Huh. Carlos tapped his pen against the clipboard. Is this going to disrupt the event? Because Mr. Peterson will have my head if anything goes wrong tonight. It would just be one song during the band's break. 5 minutes tops. Maya held her breath. Carlos studied her for a long moment. The band's supposed to break in 15 minutes. If you can clear it with them and it doesn't interfere with your serving duties, I don't see why not. Just don't make me regret this. Maya's stomach dropped. She'd been half hoping he'd say no. Okay. Thanks, I think. Walking toward the stage felt like walking toward a cliff edge. The band was finishing up a song, the crowd cheering as the last notes faded. Maya waited at the side of the stage, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The lead singer noticed her first. Hey, can we help you with something? This is going to sound strange, Maya started, but one of the bridesmaids is paying me to perform a song during your break. I used to study violin and she remembered me from school. I know it's weird, but I was hoping I could borrow your violin for like 5 minutes. The violinist, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, looked skeptical. You play classical? I did. I studied at Riverside Conservatory for a while. Riverside? The woman's expression changed slightly. That's a serious program. What made you stop? Life, Maya said simply. There wasn't time for the whole story. The violinist exchanged glances with the other band members. I don't usually let strangers touch my instrument. It's worth more than my car. I understand. I wouldn't either. Maya turned to leave, feeling relief mixed with disappointment. Wait. The violinist held up a hand. If you studied at Riverside, you know how to handle an instrument properly. And honestly, I'm curious now. But if you drop it or damage it, we're talking thousands of dollars. I won't, I promise. I'll treat it like it's my own. Maya's hands were trembling now, but not just from fear. There was something else building inside her. Something she'd buried 2 years ago. Excitement, anticipation, the hunger to play. The break starts in 5 minutes, the singer said. You've got one song. Make it count. Natalie had apparently spread the word because Maya could see a crowd gathering near the stage. Great. More pressure. She tried to remember the last time she'd performed in front of people. Her final showcase at Riverside before everything fell apart. She'd played a Vivaldi concerto and received a standing ovation. That felt like a lifetime ago, like it had happened to a different person. The band finished their set and announced they'd be taking a 15-minute break. The violinist carefully handed over her instrument, and Maya felt the weight of it in her hands. The familiar shape, the slight coolness of the wood, the tension of the strings under her fingers. It all came rushing back, muscle memory lighting up parts of her brain that had been dormant. You okay? The violinist asked. You look pale. I'm terrified, Maya admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. She walked to the center of the small stage, still wearing her waitress uniform and non-slip shoes. Someone had set up a stool for her, and she sat down, adjusting the violin under her chin. It wasn't her instrument, wasn't the one she'd spent years bonding with, but it was well made and properly maintained. It would do. The microphone picked up the sound as she drew the bow across the strings, testing the tone. Not perfect, but close enough. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to quiet the voice in her head that said she was going to fail, that she'd forgotten everything, that she should just hand the violin back and return to serving drinks. But when she opened her eyes, she saw her reflection in one of the venue's decorative mirrors across the room, a young woman in a black vest and white shirt, holding a violin worth more than 3 months of her rent. She looked terrified. She looked determined. She looked alive in a way she hadn't felt in 2 years. Maya lifted the bow and began to play. The first note came out shaky. Maya felt it in her bones, that slight tremor in her bow hand that made the sound waver. She stopped, took another breath, and started again. This time the note rang clear and true, floating out across the reception area like a bird taking flight. She'd chosen a piece she knew by heart, something she'd played 100 times in her practice sessions at Riverside. Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, but not the version everyone knew. This was her own arrangement, something she'd written during her second year at the conservatory when she was supposed to be practicing her classical repertoire, but couldn't stop herself from experimenting. The melody started soft, almost a whisper. Maya kept her eyes half closed, focusing on the feeling of the bow against the strings, the way her fingers pressed down on the fingerboard. It had been 2 years, but her hands remembered. They remembered everything. She heard someone at a nearby table shush their conversation. Then another table went quiet. The silence spread across the reception like ripples in a pond, until the only sound was Maya's violin singing into the evening air. The piece built slowly, the way a story unfolds. Each phrase led to the next, building emotion and tension. Maya's bow hand grew steadier with every measure. Her fingers found their confidence, moving faster, pressing harder. The fear that had been choking her started to loosen its grip. She transitioned into the chorus, and that's when she let herself feel it. Really feel it. All the frustration of the past 2 years, all the dreams she'd packed away in that closet with her violin. The anger at a world that made you choose between passion and survival. The sadness of watching herself become someone she never wanted to be. She poured it all into the music, and the violin responded like it understood. Maya opened her eyes and immediately wished she hadn't. The entire reception was watching her. And not just politely watching the way people watch background entertainment. They were actually paying attention. Conversations had stopped mid-sentence. The people who'd been at the bar had turned around. Even the catering staff had emerged from the kitchen, Lisa among them with her hand over her mouth. For a second, Maya almost stopped playing. The fear tried to come back, tried to tell her she was making a fool of herself. But then she saw the bride, Rebecca, standing near the dance floor with tears streaming down her face. Not sad tears. The kind of tears that come when something touches you so deeply you can't hold it in. That's when Maya stopped being afraid. That's when she remembered why she'd fallen in love with music in the first place. Not for the applause or the recognition or even the dream of making it big. But for this, for the connection. for the way music could reach inside people and make them feel things they didn't even know they were feeling. She moved into a section she'd always thought of as the conversation part of her arrangement. The violin asked questions and answered them, debated with itself, told a story without words. Her fingers flew across the strings, finding harmonics and double stops, adding layers of sound that shouldn't have been possible with just one instrument. Maya had almost forgotten about the technical challenge of it. This arrangement pushed her abilities to their limit, with rapid position changes and string crossings that required perfect precision. But somehow, after 2 years away, her hands knew exactly what to do. It was like riding a bike, except the bike was made of wood and horsehair, and 2 years of buried dreams. She glanced at the stage where the band members stood watching. The violinist's mouth was hanging slightly open. The pianist had moved closer, his head tilted like he was trying to figure out the chord progression. The singer was nodding along, her eyes closed, lost in the music. The piece took a darker turn, minor keys and dissonant intervals that spoke of pain and loss. Maya wasn't just playing notes anymore, she was telling her story. The story of leaving school, of disappointing herself, of waking up every day and pretending she was okay with how things had turned out. The violin became her voice, saying everything she'd never been able to put into words. An older man at table 8 wiped his eyes with his napkin. A teenage girl who'd been looking bored all evening was now leaning forward, completely captivated. Even Tyler, the groomsman who'd challenged her, had lost his smirk. He was staring at Maya like he was seeing her for the first time. Maya pushed harder into the music, building toward the climax. Her arm ached from the intensity, from the speed and pressure required to create the sound she wanted. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She didn't care. This was the freest she'd felt in 2 years, maybe in her whole life. The melody soared upward, reaching for something beyond the vineyard, beyond the wedding, beyond the practical reality of bills and responsibilities. For these few minutes, Maya wasn't a struggling waitress drowning in student debt. She was an artist. She was exactly who she was meant to be. Then something unexpected happened. The pianist from the band quietly returned to his keyboard at the edge of the stage. He didn't interrupt or take over. He just added a soft chord underneath Maya's melody, following her lead, supporting rather than competing. The sound filled out, became richer. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes, but she kept playing. The bass player picked up his instrument next, adding a gentle heartbeat pulse beneath the melody. Then the cellist joined in with long, sustained notes that created a foundation for Maya's violin to dance on top of. They weren't trying to steal her moment. They were enhancing it, creating something bigger and more beautiful than any of them could make alone. Maya looked over at them, a question in her eyes. The pianist smiled and nodded. "Keep going," his expression said. "We've got you." So she kept going. She took the piece in directions she'd never tried before, improvising variations on her original arrangement. The band followed her seamlessly, like they'd been playing together for years instead of minutes. The drummer came back to his kit and added the softest touch with brushes, just texture and whisper. This was what music was supposed to be. Not a solo performance where you stood alone under a spotlight, terrified of making a mistake, but a conversation, a collaboration, a group of people speaking the same language and creating something that mattered. Maya brought the piece back to the main melody one last time, but gentler now, softer, like a lullaby or a prayer. The band followed her down, reducing their volume, giving space for the violin to speak its final words. She played the last phrase slowly, deliberately, making every note count. The final note hung in the air, sustained and pure. Maya held it as long as her bow would allow, then let it fade to nothing. She lowered the violin and the bow, her arms trembling from exertion and emotion. For a moment there was complete silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Maya felt panic flutter in her chest. Had it been bad? Had she embarrassed herself after all? Then the applause started. Not polite, scattered clapping, but an eruption of sound. The entire reception was on their feet, clapping and cheering like they'd just witnessed something miraculous. The band members were applauding too, which somehow meant more to Maya than all the guests combined. Musicians knew. They could tell the difference between someone who was good and someone who was exceptional. Rebecca was openly crying now, clutching her new husband's arm. Natalie was jumping up and down, screaming, I told you she was amazing. Lisa rushed forward and hugged Maya so hard she nearly dropped the borrowed violin. Girl, what, are you doing serving drinks? Lisa laughed through her own tears. You should be on a stage somewhere, that was incredible. The violinist from the band approached, carefully taking her instrument back. Maya expected her to just reclaim it and walk away, but instead the woman held Maya's shoulders and looked her directly in the eyes. How long did you say you've been away from music, she asked. 2 years, I haven't played at all since I left school. The violinist shook her head in disbelief. That's not possible. Nobody plays like that after 2 years off. That was professional level. Beyond professional. That was the kind of playing that makes people stop everything and listen. I got lucky, Maya said, her voice shaking. It just kind of happened. That wasn't luck, honey. That was pure talent and years of dedicated practice. That doesn't just disappear. The violinist glanced back at her bandmates, then back to Maya. What's your name? Your real name, not just Maya from the catering staff. Maya Rodriguez. Maya Rodriguez, the violinist repeated, like she was committing it to memory. You need to be performing, like professionally. Not just at weddings as a surprise guest. This is what you're supposed to be doing with your life. Maya felt the tears coming now, the ones she'd been holding back. It's not that simple. I have responsibilities, bills to pay. My parents need help with their medical expenses. Music doesn't pay enough unless you make it big, and the chances of that are basically zero. The chances of playing like you just did are basically zero too, the violinist said gently, but you did it anyway. The lead singer joined them, his face serious. Maya, I don't know what your situation is, but I know talent when I see it. And I know that what you just did is the kind of thing that changes everything. Before Maya could respond to the singer, Natalie pushed through the small crowd that had formed around the stage. Her face was flushed with excitement and probably too much champagne, but her smile was genuine. That was insane. Absolutely insane. She grabbed Maya's hands. I knew you were good, but that was like watching someone's soul come out through a violin. I'm tripling my offer. $600. You earned every penny. Maya blinked. Wait, what? No, we agreed on 200. That's already generous. 200 was the dare amount. This is the holy cow, you just made my best friend's wedding unforgettable amount. Natalie was already pulling out her phone. What's your Venmo? I'm sending it right now before you can argue. I can't take $600 for playing one song, Maya protested, even as her brain was calculating what that money could do. That was almost a month's rent. That was her car insurance and her phone bill combined. You absolutely can and you will, Natalie said firmly. Rebecca, come tell her. The bride approached, still dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Maya, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. You made my wedding perfect. More than perfect. Please take the money. You deserve so much more than that, honestly. Maya felt overwhelmed. $600 was life-changing money for her right now, but it also felt wrong somehow. Like accepting, it would mean admitting that she'd been wrong to give up music, wrong to choose practical survival over her dreams. And she couldn't admit that because then what did the last 2 years mean? Thank you, Maya managed to say. Really. But I should get back to work. Carlos is probably looking for me. Actually, I gave your section to Jordan, Carlos said, appearing beside her. Maya jumped, not having noticed him approach. I figured you earned a break. That was really something, Maya. I had no idea you could play like that. Nobody did, Lisa chimed in. She'd been standing nearby, still looking starstruck. You've been hiding that talent like it's a secret identity or something. The band's pianist approached the group, a business card in his hand. Maya, I know you probably have a lot going on right now, but I need to give you this. I'm Derek Chen. I play with this wedding band on weekends, but during the week, I'm a talent coordinator for Golden State events. We book musicians for everything from corporate parties to concert halls. Maya took the card, her hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline of performing. I don't understand. What are you saying? I'm saying we're always looking for exceptional musicians, and what you just did was exceptional. We have clients who pay serious money for the kind of performance you just gave. Wedding bands are fun, but you're capable of so much more. Derek glanced at his bandmates. We all saw it. That wasn't just technically perfect playing. That was artistry. The violinist nodded in agreement. He's right. I've been playing professionally for 20 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've heard someone play with that much emotion and control at the same time. You have something special. Maya felt like she was in a dream, or maybe a nightmare. She wasn't sure which. I appreciate this, really, but I can't. I have a job, responsibilities. Music is just something I used to do. Used to do? The violinist raised her eyebrows. Honey, you just did it just now in front of 200 people and you brought down the house. That was different. That was a one-time thing because someone dared me and I needed the money. Maya knew she was making excuses, but she couldn't seem to stop. Real performing careers take time and energy and money I don't have. I can't just drop everything and hope it works out. Derek's expression softened. I get it. Believe me, I understand the fear. But here's the thing. We're not talking about you dropping everything and hoping for the best. We're talking about actual paid gigs, regular work, the kind that pays better than waitressing. How much better? The question came out before Maya could stop herself. For someone with your talent, private events pay anywhere from $500 to $1,500 per performance depending on the client and the length of the set. Corporate events can pay even more. And those are just the starting rates for someone building their reputation. Derek watched her face carefully. You could work weekends, keep your day job if you want security, and still make more money than you're making now. Maya's mind raced. $1,500 for a few hours of playing? That seemed impossible. But I don't have my own instrument anymore. I sold it to help with my mom's medical bills. We have instruments you can borrow until you can afford your own, the violinist offered. That's not an obstacle. The only real obstacle is whether you're willing to try. Natalie was practically bouncing now. Maya, you have to do this. This is like a movie moment. This is fate or destiny or whatever you want to call it. You can't walk away from this opportunity. People walk away from opportunities all the time, Maya said quietly. Usually because they have to, not because they want to. Rebecca stepped closer, and everyone else seemed to instinctively give them space. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. Can I tell you something? My dad died when I was 16. He was a painter, a really talented one, but he never pursued it professionally. He worked in insurance because it was safe and practical. He always said he'd get back to painting seriously. When he retired, when he had time, when the circumstances were perfect. Maya could see where this was going, but she let Rebecca continue. He never got that chance. And at his funeral, I remember thinking about all those unfinished paintings in his studio. All that talent that the world never really got to see because he was waiting for the perfect moment. Rebecca's eyes were wet again. I'm not saying you should be irresponsible, but I am saying that talent like yours doesn't come around every day. And watching you play tonight, seeing how alive you were up there, that's not something you should ignore. The words hit Maya harder than she expected. She thought about her own father, about the loans he'd taken out to support her dream. He'd believed in her talent enough to sacrifice for it. And what had she done? Given up at the first sign of difficulty. But was that fair to herself? She hadn't given up because she was scared or lazy. She'd given up because her family needed her, because being an adult meant making hard choices. I don't know, Maya said finally. This is a lot to process. I just came here to work a shift and make tips. Sleep on it, Derek said, pointing to the business card still in her hand. That's my direct number. Call me when you're ready to talk. No pressure, no obligation. But Maya, opportunities like this don't come along often, for either of us. I need talented musicians, and you need work that actually values what you can do. Tyler, the groomsman who'd been skeptical earlier, cleared his throat. Everyone turned to look at him. Look, I was a jerk before. I didn't believe you were as good as Natalie said. But that was legitimately one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. My sister is getting married next spring, and she's been looking for musicians. If you're interested, I can connect you with her wedding planner. Maya almost laughed. An hour ago, this guy had been questioning whether she had any talent at all. Now he was offering to recommend her for his sister's wedding. The whole situation felt surreal. "Thank you," she said, because she didn't know what else to say. Carlos touched her elbow gently. "Maya, why don't you take the rest of the night off? You've already given this wedding more than anyone expected. Go home, think things through. We've got enough staff to cover." "Are you sure? I don't want to leave you short-handed." "I'm positive. Besides, after that performance, asking you to go back to clearing plates feels wrong." Carlos smiled. "Go on. Get out of here." Lisa hugged her again. "Call me tomorrow, okay? I want to hear what you decide. And girl, whatever you choose, I'm proud of you." That took guts. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She handed the borrowed violin back to the band's violinist one more time, thanking her profusely. Then she made her way through the reception area, feeling the eyes of guests on her. Some of them stopped her to offer compliments. One couple asked if she had a website where they could book her for their anniversary party. She collected her bag from the staff area, changed out of her work shoes, and walked toward the parking lot. The sun had fully set now, and the vineyard was lit with strings of lights that made everything look magical. She could still hear the band playing in the distance, back to their regular set of crowd-pleasing covers. Maya sat in her old Honda Civic for a long moment before starting the engine. She pulled out her phone and looked at her Venmo account. Sure enough, Natalie had sent $600 with a note that said, "You're a star. Don't forget it. $600. Derek Chen's business card. Tyler's offer to connect her with his sister's wedding planner. The violinist's praise. The memory of how it felt to play again. To be truly alive for the first time in 2 years." Maya thought about her father and his belief in her talent. She thought about Rebecca's dad and his unfinished paintings. She thought about all the reasons she'd given up music and all the reasons she might have been wrong to do so. Then she started her car and drove home, the business card sitting on the passenger seat like a promise or a threat. She wasn't sure which. What she did know was that something had changed tonight. Something fundamental. The question was whether she was brave enough to let that change mean something, or if she'd spend the next 20 years wondering what might have been if she'd just had the courage to try. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, Derek Chen's business card on her nightstand catching the streetlight from outside. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the violin under her chin, again heard the applause, saw the tears on Rebecca's face. Around 3 in the morning, she got up and opened her childhood bedroom closet. Her parents had insisted she keep some of her things at their house, even after she moved out. The violin case was in the back, behind old yearbooks and boxes of college textbooks she couldn't bring herself to sell. Maya pulled out the case and sat on the floor with it. Her hands trembled as she opened the latches. The violin was gone, sold almost a year ago when her mom's medication costs had spiked unexpectedly. But the bow was still there, and some old sheet music she'd forgotten about. She picked up the bow and held it, feeling its familiar weight. Can't sleep either. Her mom appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her bathrobe. The medication had helped, but she still had good days and bad days. Tonight seemed to be a good one. "Sorry, did I wake you?" Maya set the bow down carefully. "No, I was already up. These new pills mess with my sleep schedule." Her mom came and sat beside her on the floor, something that would have been impossible 6 months ago. "What's going on, sweetie?" Maya told her everything. The wedding, the dare, the performance, the $600, Derek's job offer. Her mom listened without interrupting, the way she always did when Maya needed to talk. "So what are you going to do?" her mom asked when Maya finished. "I don't know. The smart thing would be to keep my waitressing job. It's steady, reliable, I know what to expect." "The smart thing," her mom repeated slowly. "Maya, do you remember what your father said when you got accepted to Riverside?" Maya shook her head. Those early days felt like a lifetime ago. He said, Our daughter is going to be someone who makes the world more beautiful." He was so proud. Not because you were going to make a lot of money or have a fancy career, but because you had a gift that could touch people's hearts. Her mom picked up one of the old sheet music pages. "When you left school, he never blamed you. He understood why you did it. But he also never stopped believing you'd find your way back to music somehow. Dad needed that money for his business loan, and you needed it for your treatment. I made the right choice, and you made a loving choice. But Maya, we never asked you to give up your dreams for us. That was your decision." Her mom's voice was gentle but firm. "And now you have a chance to find a middle ground. You don't have to choose between helping us and being who you're meant to be. What if I fail? What if I try this and it doesn't work out? Then you'll have tried. That's more than most people can say." Her mom squeezed her hand. "Fear of failure kept me from doing a lot of things in my life. I don't want that for you." They sat together in silence for a while, surrounded by the artifacts of Maya's musical past. When her mom finally went back to bed, Maya stayed on the floor thinking about everything that had been said. As the sun started to rise, Maya made a decision. She picked up her phone and called Derek Chen's number before she could change her mind. He answered on the third ring, sounding remarkably awake for 5:30 in the morning. Derek Chen speaking. "Hi, this is Maya Rodriguez, from the wedding last night. I'm sorry for calling so early. Maya." No, don't apologize. I'm an early riser. I was hoping you'd call. What can I do for you?" Maya took a deep breath. "I want to try the performing thing, but I need to be honest with you. I don't have my own instrument right now, and I can't afford to quit my day job completely. Not yet, and I'm terrified that I've been away from music too long to really make this work." "Those are all reasonable concerns," Derek said. "Here's what I'm thinking. We start you off with weekend gigs, private parties, small events. Nothing that conflicts with your current schedule. You use one of our instruments until you've earned enough to buy your own. We'll ease you back into performing, help you build a portfolio and a reputation. Sound manageable?" "That actually sounds perfect." "Too perfect." "What's the catch?" Derek laughed. "No catch. Well, maybe one. You have to promise to practice and take this seriously. Half the battle in this business is reliability. If you commit to a gig, you show up and you perform your best. Can you do that?" "Yes," Maya said, surprised by how confident she sounded. "I can do that." "Great, I have an event next Saturday night. A 50th wedding anniversary party at a hotel in the city. Cocktail hour music, nothing too demanding. 3 hours, $800. Interested? $800 for 3 hours. Maya's mind spun. "Yes, absolutely interested." "Perfect. I'll email you the details and the song list, and Maya, welcome back to music." After she hung up, Maya sat with her phone in her hand, feeling like she'd just jumped off a cliff and discovered she could fly. Or maybe she was still falling and just hadn't hit the ground yet. Either way, there was no going back now. She called Carlos next and gave her 2 weeks' notice at the catering company. He wasn't surprised. "I figured you'd be moving on after last night. You're too talented to be serving drinks forever, but I'll miss having you on the team." Then she called Lisa, who screamed so loud Maya had to hold the phone away from her ear. "I knew it. I knew you couldn't walk away from that opportunity." "This is so exciting." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. Derek connected Maya with the violinist from the wedding band, whose name was Patricia. She loaned Maya a good quality instrument and spent hours helping her prepare for the anniversary party. They practiced together, Patricia offering tips and corrections Maya hadn't realized she needed. "You've got the technical skills down solid," Patricia said during one session, "but you've been playing it too safe. What made your performance at the wedding special was the emotion, the risks you took. Don't lose that." Maya took the advice to heart. When Saturday came and she arrived at the hotel for her first real gig in 2 years, she was nervous but ready. The anniversary couple was in their 70s, celebrating 50 years of marriage with their children and grandchildren. Maya played during the cocktail hour, a mix of classical pieces and jazz standards that Derek had suggested. Halfway through her set, the wife approached her with tears in her eyes. "That song you just played, La Vie en Rose, and that was our wedding song." "How did you know?" Maya hadn't known. She'd just chosen it because it seemed appropriate. But watching the elderly woman's face light up with memory and emotion, Maya understood something fundamental. Music wasn't about being perfect or impressive. It was about connection. It was about reaching into people's hearts and touching something real. The 3 hours flew by. When Maya packed up the borrowed violin, the anniversary couple insisted on giving her a $200 tip on top of what Derek was paying her. "You made our party special," the husband said. "Thank you for sharing your gift with us." Over the next 6 months, Maya's life transformed in ways she never expected. Derek kept booking her for events, and word spread. Tyler made good on his promise and recommended her for his sister's wedding, which led to 3 more wedding bookings. She started teaching violin lessons 2 evenings a week, which brought in steady income and reminded her how much she loved sharing music with others. The money wasn't always consistent, but it was enough. More than enough, actually. Between performing, teaching, and the occasional waitressing shift she picked up when things were slow, Maya was making more money than she had before. And she was happy. Really genuinely happy in a way she hadn't been since leaving Riverside. She bought back a violin, not her original one, but a beautiful instrument that she found at an estate sale. It needed some repairs, but Patricia helped her find a good luthier who brought it back to life. The first time Maya played it, she cried. Her parents came to one of her performances at a local art gallery opening. Her father sat in the front row with tears streaming down his face the entire time. Afterward, he hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. "I always knew you'd find your way back," he whispered. "I always knew." A year after the wedding at the Vineyard, Maya was preparing for her biggest performance yet. A concert hall showcase featuring up-and-coming classical musicians. Derek had pulled strings to get her an audition slot, and somehow she'd made it through. She'd be playing for an audience of music industry professionals, critics, and potential patrons. The morning of the concert, Maya woke up terrified. This was different from playing at parties and weddings. This was her official re-entry into the serious music world, the world she'd left behind. What if she wasn't good enough? What if everyone could see the 2-year gap in her training? Then she remembered Natalie's dare, the moment that had changed everything. She remembered standing on that stage in her waitress uniform, scared out of her mind and deciding to play anyway. That courage hadn't abandoned her. It was still there, waiting to be called upon. Maya arrived at the concert hall early and stood on the empty stage, looking out at the rows of seats. In a few hours, they'd be filled with people who would judge whether she belonged in this world. But Maya realized she wasn't performing for them, not really. She was performing for herself, for her parents, for everyone who'd ever had to choose between their dreams and their responsibilities, and wondered if they'd made the right call. She was performing because she could, because she had this gift, and keeping it hidden felt like lying about who she was. That evening, as Maya walked onto the stage in a proper concert dress instead of a waitress uniform, as she lifted her violin and faced the audience, she thought about that night at the Vineyard, about how a simple dare had unlocked everything she thought she'd lost forever. The first note rang out clear and strong, and Maya smiled. She was home.